Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Show Up Central Oregon. Once again, it's our Friday update, and I am so very pleased to be joined by Sherry Helt. Hello, Sherry. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great. How are you today, Matt?
You know, I am well. It's been an interesting week as far as some exciting financial news. Obviously, some money getting into the hands of people, and there's also been some mixed news. But let's sort of talk about things overall. How are we doing? State numbers? How are you feeling as far as where we're at? Obviously, I think we've done a good job flattening the curve, but what does that look like at this point in time?
So do you want to start with economy numbers or curve numbers?
Which would you like to start with? I am good with ever talking first.
Well, first let's start with the PPP loans.
That sounds good.
So PPP loans were distributed this week, which are the federal SBA loans, which are the Payroll Protection Program loans. And so those businesses were allowed to apply for those, and they were accepted. And I believe we're going in on the third. It's 3.5 weeks since that was passed. Am I correct on that, Matt?
I think
On
so.
Friday.
I think so. I think that would be about right. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that would
so
be about right.
I think we're in this would be the 4th week anniversary. And the loans have not only been passed, they have been written, and banks have taken the applications. And now the dollars are out into the hands of Oregonians. There were 9,508 loans funded in the state of Oregon, and that total equals $2.4 billion.
Which is that is a good deal of money. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's a lot of money, and that money is given to businesses to pay for their rent, their utilities, their employees' salaries, and their employees' benefits. And so this is very much designed to get people back into work and back with their employer and companies whole, so that we don't have this surge problem in the unemployment department.
Oh yes, that is good. Now, unfortunately, obviously, that money you can't apply for any more of it. That was as of was it yesterday? Yesterday morning, I believe they announced that is not that the well has dried up with that money source at this point in time.
Yeah. So that means $350 billion that the federal government put into this loan program is now all spoken for, and the loan program is no longer.
I got an email that said they basically did 14 years. This is like your unemployment stat from a couple of weeks ago. 14 years worth of loans in 14 days, basically. So that's quite a volume, that is for sure. So that obviously, that's going to be getting money into businesses, getting money into, the hands of people. So there's obviously then the question of how we doing flattening so we can put people back into those positions.
And the big thing about getting money into the hands of businesses is it gets money into the hands of the employees too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because businesses are only stable if our employees are stable and well cared for, and able to be well compensated. And so this is very, very helpful in maintaining the structure of Oregon. It also is going to get people off of unemployment and back onto payroll, which means taxes will be being paid, which means we can help fund schools. So that's a really important factor about this program as well.
So they obviously, state of Oregon, we have done a good job of flattening the curve, and so getting these people back into schools, getting people back into employment, that sort of thing. Obviously, the PPP will help with that. But what does that look like? What are our numbers like today to help start to move us forward in some other ways?
Yeah, so we're still going a little bit. Every day we have a little bit of a increase in positives. We're still seeing positive testing, but people are recovering as well. So there is, there's still the COVID's still out there. We've got to make sure that we don't have a secondary surge. So everybody in Central Oregon, you should be very proud that we have sacrificed and stayed in our homes, and we've made sure that we've saved our most vulnerable citizens and our neighbors and protected everyone. And so in Central Oregon, we have 37 positive cases that were tested at St. Charles, and only 3 inpatient patients right now. with COVID. So we are down to 3 inpatient patients. So that is a great decline in that, because last week we were talking around double-digit numbers, so it was in 10, I believe. And then Central Oregon has 61 positive cases, and we've had 1,042 negative test results, and we're pending 123 cases. And so at a state level, what we have is, and I think you have these numbers.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
We have 1,785 positive cases, and the negatives are growing more, where we have 34,536 negative tests. So that is a lot better of a percentage of the negative versus positive. So what we believe we're seeing is that the curve is flattening, and we're coming on the downward side of it. We haven't seen that spike that we thought we would see. So what we have done by staying home and saving lives really has saved lives, and it's really saved a lot of lives in our first responders because they're the most exposed. And so thank you to everyone who has followed the orders and helped us as a community. I think the community outreach and the community camaraderie has been great on that. And so that's really paid dividends for all of us.
I would totally agree. And we talked before we came on the air. St. Charles has started drive-through testing. Is that correct? Yeah. Do you know, Sherry, the details on how, do you have, I believe they have to have a doctor's order. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now it's just a doctor's order, and you're able to drive through. That way it limits the exposure of the first responder taking the test. And then it also allows it to be in an open air space, and it's a much safer process, and we can do a lot more testing. So that is starting this week, and we'll continue to ramp that up as a hospital in the county, so that we can, because one of the big indicators to get moving on, I'm going to move to my notes, is getting testing. We have to have more testing to be able to open back the economy up, to know how we can do more isolation, to make sure that we're able to isolate patients and know where they're at. And that's going to be an important feature in the recovery for this.
What is I know the governor had a press release as far as, I think, was it earlier this week, as far as what she's looking for to open the state. Can you sort of give our viewers sort of that guidance, or at least what's being said by the governor at this point in time?
Well, what we're looking for is more testing right now. And the testing they want to see statewide is about 15,000 tests. Right now we're at about 9,000 tests a week, and we need to raise that up to about 15,000, so that you can see more of the population and know where the positives versus negatives are, and where if you're on an incline or a decrease. And so we want to make sure that we're maintaining that decrease. We're also looking at hospitalizations, and we've been looking at these numbers through the entire pandemic. But the hospitalizations, we have to make sure that we have enough beds available, that we have enough ICU beds available, that we have enough ventilators available. And so we're constantly tracking on a state level the number of ventilators we have, how many are in use, and how many beds are available, how many are in use, and how many regular beds. So it's ICU beds, regular beds, and ventilators. And so it's how many you have, your total supply, and then the total that are in use, because the surge cases, as we know, need more protection from more equipment, which is the ventilators.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk, I guess since we're talking about that, I believe you sent a letter to the governor yesterday. Is that correct, Sherry?
Yeah.
And that in that letter, what are you hoping at this point in time?
So my hope at this point in time is that we know that cases are declining, and we're watching us go on down the backside of this surge curve. But it's not time for us to leave our homes yet. We still have to stay home and stay safe. But how can we most safely start to open up our economy and really help people the best way we can? So there have been a lot of people that have made a lot of sacrifice through this pandemic, which is not having the surgeries that they need. And we have called these surgeries elective, which I think is a little misleading because a lot of these are really actually acute procedures.
Right.
So if you have a gallbladder surgery that needs to happen, that was considered elective. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's very elective. And so we need to make sure that we're able to start up some of these processes to help get relief for people because they're having permanent damage from not having these surgeries. Like a gallbladder surgery, you can have pancreatitis, which could be a lifelong condition if you don't get the surgery in time. So we really need to start opening, allowing and giving back the autonomy to our physicians and our healthcare workers and our hospitals to be able to determine if they have enough PPE supplies to be able to start doing some of those procedures. Because at St. Charles, we have 3 COVID cases in the hospital, and our entire surgical floor is now closed. And so these are different teams, different areas, and I believe that we can safely start to open back up those procedures and bring relief to a lot of our Central Oregonians for the procedures that they have needed. Back surgery is considered elective, and there's a lot of people that are on a lot of pain meds and unable to move around because they have, spinal issues that need to be taken care of with surgery. So there's a lot of real issues that need to be taking place. And as we have been not allowing these surgeries to happen because we've been trying to preserve PPE and hospital bed space, and we've been doing our part to make sure that everyone is safe, these surgeries have been delayed. And so now I believe with the numbers that we are seeing, it's time to return the autonomy back to our healthcare professionals, our doctors, our hospitals, and let them determine a plan with policymakers and the governor that can be approved to start allowing these surgeries to come back in whatever fashion they think is safe. And I think that it's really important that we start here when we're looking at turning back on some normalcy for Central Oregon, because this is very important, because the people that are in charge of this process are the very people we're counting on to manage the surge and stop the spread of the COVID coronavirus. And so they know how to safely and effectively do this. They know how to manage their PPE resources. And I think that it's time we return that autonomy back to them and allow people to get those surgeries at a rate that our physicians feel comfortable with, and our public health officials, so that we can bring some relief to our patients and start having some normalcy and start opening up a few more economic positions inside of our hospital.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I believe, at least I had heard a rumor that some people there is some people that had been laid off in these positions because they didn't have any work to do. And so again, it could potentially bring back some of that economy and some of those things. And in like you were saying, in a profession that these people are very well aware of it, and they don't, they're not the ones that want to sacrifice or put anybody at risk because they know that those are not, they can't do that, basically.
Well, this is their wheelhouse. This is the space that they operate in, is helping us. They're our first responders. And so for them to be able to have their own autonomy, to be able to be helping their own patients while they manage the COVID outbreak, because we're not, we still have to be very careful and we still have to stay home and save lives. But I think this is a very good first step to be able to bring some relief to people and to be able to, get some people back to work in the right space.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I want to move on to unemployment briefly. I know state of Oregon. I don't know where week over week I haven't been tracking that. How are we doing week over week at this point in time?
So we had another large week. We have over 300,000 unemployment claims filed. And I have been working tirelessly with a lot of our Central Oregonians that have been having struggles and denials of the process. I think we've worked through a lot of the denials that we were working through for the last few weeks. And now we're more on to denials that have complicated cases, like they've switched a work job recently. They don't have, they've taken some time off of work, so they don't have enough of work history, or they're independent contractors, so they don't qualify. There's just been a bunch of different issues that have popped up. Not like the denials. The first few weeks, if you remember, I think the first day we were talking about people being denied from unemployment because they were answering the question wrong if they were looking for work.
Right.
And they were answering no because they didn't think there was work to be looked for.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were considered to be looking for work if they were temporarily unemployed. And so we've worked through all of those denials, and most of those people have had those fixed. So that is very nice to have that behind us. And now we're working more through just the surge and the load of unemployment claims. And so I want to be clear that I'm equally as frustrated as everyone else. This has been a very, very difficult process. We should have hired up earlier as a state, and we should have removed some of these regulations early on. I advocated to do that. That did not happen. So now we just have to work through the system that we have.
Right.
And this system has, now we started with 100 employees in the unemployment department because we had the lowest unemployment in history. And then we hired, the state hired 400 new people and put them in place and trained them. And they started this week. And so you're seeing a lot more claims being processed due to those 400 people. But with the continued surge, they're in the process of hiring 400 more new people to be able to get through this in a timely fashion. And so there has been a lot of things that needed to happen that didn't, and now we're here. And we've gotten through a lot of the denials that have been denied, out of different difficulties. We've worked through a lot of that, and the unemployment department has fixed those. And now we're just in this surge load. So if you filed for unemployment and you have a number and you're able to check in weekly, then you are in the queue. And so there's not much to be done until you're processed, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are denials, please reach out to me and I can help work through some of those more complicated cases.
Right.
Because today I had a gentleman who had filed an unemployment case, and he had been on unemployment before. And so I think that was leading to a lot of complications. And if you've extended your unemployment benefits in the previous year, there's going to be the pandemic unemployment assistance program rolled out next week, which will be for independent contractors.
Yeah.
And it's extending those benefits for 13 more weeks. So we'll bring relief to a lot more people next week. But we still have that surge of people that is needing to be filed. So this week has been good for me because a lot of the people that I've been working with on the email, you get these emails and your heart breaks because we need to get them money, and it's, they're struggling
Mm-hmm.
and to pay the rent, to get food. And this week I've gotten I got my checks. So that was great. So it's good to see people getting some relief this week. So
Yeah.
the conversations have changed a little bit this week, which have been more for the positive.
Yeah, I just threw something up in the chat to the resource, and I'll throw this up on the screen too. This is a great website that has been put together to ask some or answer some questions, basically. So, again, I just I put that link in the chat, so it'll be in the comments on the archive, and then, but you can see. And again, I think what's important to reiterate what Sherry just said is, if you're self-employed, Monday will be that day where you can start filing. So I encourage those self-employed people to, make sure you're ready to go on Monday to start doing that. Where you've got I got to run off here for another event, but is there anything else you wanted to make sure that we knew, Sherry, in the next, couple of minutes here?
No, I think that stimulus checks have been coming out as well. And those are being directly deposited into your account that you filed taxes in last year. So if you didn't have a direct deposit, you need to reach out to get an actual check. Um, and so there's some websites on that. I didn't provide that link though beforehand, but just know that those stimulus checks of $1,200 a person for people under 75,000, and then 2,400 for couples making under 20 or under 175,000, and then $500 for every child. So those are being deposited as well. So hopefully that is bringing some relief to some of the families while they wait for unemployment.
Yeah, very much, and I think it is important too to be looking at your. If you don't log into your bank, it's probably a good idea to log in, because it. I do know somebody that was looking and realized that it had been probably deposited into another account. So,
Oh,
it's a. They were able to figure it out, but yeah, it's one of those that you should be looking, just because it could be there, and that is something that yes, it can give you a short term relief at this point in time, and that's all sometimes that we need. So, Sherry, I appreciate you joining me.
thanks, Matt.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk next Tuesday for sure.
Okay,
All
I'll
right,
look forward to it.
all right, sounds good, Sherry. Thanks. All right,
Thank you.
let you get off around your day. I'm going to do a quick sign off here. I am going to go do combat COVID-19. So for those of you that are watching right now, we have an interesting talk, pediatrics, coming up on combat COVID-19, Central Oregon. So thanks for joining me. Thanks again, Sherry, for joining us. I hope you guys found some information. Again, there's a link to some resources that I just posted. So have a great weekend wherever you are, and enjoy, just being present with people. We are going to get through this. It's not going to take too much longer. Length is sort of relative at this point in time, but since we've already gone 30 days, we're, like Sherry said, she's working on trying to get things going, and I think we're going to start seeing some movement here in the next week or two, opening things back up. We have to be patient. It's going to go slow, but it is going to get there. So, again, on behalf of myself, I just appreciate you joining me today. And remember, show up for Central Oregon.